Okay, so hi everyone. Okay, today's talk is with Vanessa. Vanessa is a coach. She will give us a quick introduction afterwards about what she does and everything. Okay, um, it's been a while since we had our last talk because we skipped last week's. Okay, so this week's topic is basically how to move on and forward after pregnancy loss. Okay, so we hope that you can gain some insightful information today with Vanessa. Okay, let me now add her in so that we can start today's talk. Thank you, Daisy. I just rushed home from outside, so that's why I'm still kind of dressed up today. Okay. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Okay, so everyone, this is Vanessa. Okay, I'm sure we've shared an article about Vanessa before, so some of you may have read about her. Okay, but maybe Vanessa, you can give us an introduction of yourself so that everybody can kind of know your story.
Yep. So um, I'm about to be a pregnancy loss coach because of my own experience. Lost 3 angel babies. And this particular journey, other than just coaching for my wound, it's very close to my heart because I realized when I was going through it, there were not many support in Asia context because it's a very taboo topic in the first place. And a lot of the grief coach or pregnancy loss coach seems to be outside of Asia. You can see a lot in Australia, in Canada, in the States, but there's not much in Asia. And even as I start to be open to talk about what to say, what to do, how to hold energy, that's when I realized work needed in this area. My background is an educator, so the founder of Mindful Space, Karen and Shay. So my studio is at Newton, Singapore, and I've been running like Mother Circle, Women's Circle, and then I asked myself, why not Pregnancy Loss Circle as well? So then I dive deeper into this topic, and then I realized actually a lot of people, even when I started diving into this topic, it opened up a lot of doors. Some grieving dads came to me. The Asians overseas, because of the recent article that's posted at CNE as well, some Asians overseas actually contacted me as well, and it really opened up my mind and perspective to what that we can actually do for the community. So
Okay, you just mentioned just now that basically you had some losses, right? You had 3 losses. Okay, how long ago did this happen, basically?
so my most recent loss is 2016.
2016. Okay.
2016, that's my most recent. Then 2014, and then the first one is much way. So if I can put it into terms, the first was unplanned loss, which what some people call it like miscarriage. Usually like pregnancy loss, because miscarriage brings negative connotation that we intentionally miscarry the baby, right? We just put it out of control. The last one was actually a planned loss, uh, a planned loss, which what some would call abortion, because the baby was abnormal and we needed to make the call.
Understand. So in terms of, okay, so after your first loss, your second loss and everything, how did you basically get through it? Did you, I mean, because you said that you searched for, I mean, pregnancy loss coaches and there wasn't any in Singapore, but after the first loss, did you search for a pregnancy loss coach?
I think at that time, I'm a very goal-oriented, focused person, and I think I did learn throughout. Like the first two, the second one, I remember that I was just pushing because I don't know how to do the emotions. So I end up packing my day back to back with a lot of activities and things like that. Now that I'm back, it was actually like it was a numbing, a coping mechanism that I numb myself with back to back activities so that I don't need to be alone. And then these thoughts come to me. And I was trying to move on very fast because I'm thinking I don't want to get stuck, which a lot of women come to me. I do notice there's a similar trend sometimes because we are living in an urban society and thinking about it means I'm getting stuck, feeling sad, But with my third loss, I've learned that as I try to push myself as fast forward as I can, but something is not quite right. I tend to go back again, and little things trigger me, and it manifests in different things because I'm suppressing the emotions, right? And I was just a lot of pent up energy, because basically emotions are energy in motion, energy in the body. So when you suppress your emotion, you're also suppressing energy. So that's why sometimes people pan it up in terms of anger. You see them easily frustrated or agitated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then with my third one, I learned to read more. I think the the aha moment for me would be when I realized that actually 80% of the pregnancy result is from chromosome abnormality. That make a huge change. Because what did I?
Sorry, Vanessa. I'm just going to stop you. Okay, some people are saying that your the sound is a bit distorted. Are you using 4G or Wi-Fi?
I'm using Wi-Fi. Should I change to 4G?
Okay, yeah, just change to 4G. Sometimes Wi-Fi is a bit yeah, but yeah, we've had a few people say it's a bit choppy. So maybe just change it to 4G, and then we'll see whether it improves. Oh, and make sure we've gone through this before. The bottom of the speaker is not covered, kind of thing, so that just in case sometimes when the speaker is covered, we cannot really hear you. Okay, maybe can you hear me closely now?
Yes, I try to put on AirPod, so maybe that's a bit better.
Okay, let's try it out, and then let's try it out and see. So yeah, so coming back, so you said the third one basically, I mean, you guess you were suppressing a lot of your feelings, which I guess a lot of people do, you know, and I guess it's not very healthy to do so, right? After your third loss, I mean, have you had any further children since then?
Yes, I have Elvana right now, who is 3 years old.
Oh wow, okay, so
and
that
thankfully
means
she's sleeping.
so after 2016, which means that about a few years later, then you had your child. Wow. Okay. So what made you? I guess one of the questions people ask is what gave you courage basically to carry on after having all your miscarriages, especially the third one, which you had to obviously go through a very tough decision to let go of the baby.
The third one was very painful for me. And I remember telling myself, I can cry 6 days, 6 months, 6 years. At the end of the day, I still need to accept and move. So I think that made a difference. What gave me the courage? I think, people always think like, wow, courage is like so courageous, go and do something.
Yeah.
But like Brene Brown say, courage comes with vulnerability. The willingness to just be vulnerable. I'm not sure whether this next pregnancy is going to make it or not, but I'm just going to surrender, and I'm just going to accept whatever that comes, because it's beyond my control. If I've already had a clean and healthy diet, if I already have good sleep, taking care of myself, making sure I don't have alcohol and not smoking and things like that, literally there's only so much you can control that's within what you can do, right? So everything else is literally like you just need to surrender and have the leap of faith. You can choose to live in fear, right? Then the question is, does that fear serve you? What is the story that you keep telling yourself? Is this story opening doors for you, opening possibilities for you, or is this story that you keep telling yourself closing possibilities for you? So I think that's a distinction, because sometimes we keep playing the scenario in my head. Oh, the next pregnancy, yeah. So like literally questioning ourselves sometimes
and
help.
I guess there's lots of fear as well. I mean, the thing is that how do you get rid of the fear that is in you? I mean, sometimes it's probably easier to say than actually do, but definitely there's a lot of fear, especially I mean for you 3, and we've met even a lot of ladies who had 5, 6, 7 miscarriages and everything. So I mean, how do you get rid of fear in like your mindset?
Yeah, I don't know if we need to get rid of it actually.
Okay.
Because this fear, you just need to observe it, and it can transform in different energy, right? Sometimes the fear serve you as well. Like if we are not scared of things in life, it can be scary, So fear sometimes do serve you as well. And you can transform the energy in fear to make it to courage.
Okay.
So sometimes we always think,
yeah.
Same for grief. People always think that, I want to move forward. I don't want to grieve anymore. I want to put it aside. But grief is basically intense love with nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So if you don't love that thing, you won't grieve about it. It's because you
treasure it so much. It's so precious to you. That's why you're feeling sad about it. So hence you actually don't need to let go of the grief. You can move forward with the grief. You can take that grief and move forward with you in life. People always think in either have grief or joy, either sad or happy. But you can have sad and happiness together. It doesn't need to be one or the other. It doesn't need to be a polarity map in that sense.
True. Tell me that sentence again. Grief is what, basically? You mentioned just now.
Basically, intense love with nowhere to go.
Intense. Wow. That's a very interesting sentence. And wow, it really it is very, very true now that you say. Yeah. So, okay, in terms of, so now going into coaching, at what particular point in time did you say, okay, I think there is a necessity for me to basically learn coaching? I mean, because, you're not the first person, we've had other people who basically talk to us and say that through all this, they decided, yes, let's go to do coaching and this and that. And so when was that pivotal moment for you that decided, okay, I think now's the time?
I think there was a period of time, I've already set up my food space then, and I've been doing like mother circle, women's circle, and all this support.
So you were doing this, you were doing like mother circle and women's circle. When was this?
This was like 2019 onwards.
And what's these circles all about, basically?
So this is where, so like the mother circle, what we're basically trying to tell moms is, it's very hard for you to fill your cup of your child if you're always at your leftover. You're only giving your leftovers. You're not giving the very best version of yourself.
Yeah.
So the well-being of moms is like, so let's just coming together and have a safe space for conversation. So sometimes when we're outside, we feel very judged with what we say. Like we should be at a certain way, we should know already because we are mom, But these circles are non-judgmental, and it's a safe space to have a conversation and support each other in that. So we also do well-being for parents in many different ways, whether it's yoga, sound healing, in that sense. And my background is an educator, so I do talk.
That means you're a teacher, basically.
Yes, I used to be a lecturer. And I
you
really
do have the teacher look, that I can imagine you being a teacher.
Yeah. That's why I was like, oh, let me know the time frame just in case I go into my lecture mode and I talk too much, right? Yeah.
No worries.
So basically,
and then the women's circle. So the women's circle basically is something similar. So that that not literally parents, but just women, is it?
Correct. That's right.
Okay.
So taking care of ourselves, because what we need to remember, taking care of ourselves is also part of taking care of our family. We've been going to the motion of self-sacrificing, pleasing other people, but when you're always running thin on short fuse, there's only so much you can give, right? And my background as an educator, and then I was just thinking one day, like, why don't I do something, with my vulnerability? Because I was okay to speak up about how I go through it and things, and I realized I've helped people as they hear my story. Then I was like, okay, just one day it just hit me that, this is the direction that I would love to go in terms of pregnancy loss. Then I started to search a lot. Then I was like, I wonder what support is available in Asia. And it was very, very limited. A lot of the support is psychologists, okay? Or you go to the hospital. But the thing is, we are sad, we are not sick. We don't want to have this stigma that we have some mental, stigma on and being on record, things like that, right? Of mental illness. So yeah, basically we don't need pills to heal us. It's more of needing a space sometimes. And I've already been creating space for parents, space for kids, right? So my food space is holding space for kids. And I was like, why don't I create a space for women who's been through pregnancy loss? And I chose this particular coaching course that I was going into because they focus a lot on the emotions and body as well. Some other coaching courses focus a lot on the mind and the language and the brain, but I wanted to go in a different form, and so I really like it. And the coaching course, basically in the first 6 months, they break us, they really break us down so that when we coach, we don't project our emotions and our experience. Just because I've been through 3 losses doesn't mean that I know how you feel or I know better. Every grief journey, every pregnancy loss is unique. So I like coaching because it's a co-partnership with the coachee. At any direction they want to go, I follow their lead.
So how do, okay, this for a coaching session, let's say there's a lady, basically, how do they find you? That's number one. And then what is in a coaching session, basically?
How do they find me? They can find me through Instagram. Unfortunately, I must admit that I haven't been really shouting out loud and doing a lot of things, you know. So usually people who come to me, right? They probably have researched quite a lot already to get to me, because I haven't been really shouting out loud. I've been quite focused on mindful space work actually, and what the coaching session. So we will either go to the beach or the garden.
Oh, wow.
For
so it's
people
not
who are
like
in
in an
Singapore.
office or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
outdoors. That's very interesting. Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I believe in the shift in environment shifts our mood. And when we shift
Yes.
our mood, you know, our perception and thinking change as well. And so here we can do a lot of walking, we can do somatic work, we can do mindfulness, we can do visualization, we can do breathing. And it's just very different. Like you have four walls and you try to do visualization, that really you're out in the sea and nature and doing that. You know? So we can walk barefoot on the beach. So it really depends where they want to meet me. But of course, I also have people who are not in Singapore, and then we'll need to do through Zoom. Yeah.
Do you find that
Oh.
because it's such a new thing in Singapore, right? Do you find that I mean, this is what I realized as well, that it's a lot bigger overseas, you know, in like the European kind of countries and this and that. But in Singapore, it's not something that's very known, or you know, they don't realize, or you know, people need it. But I mean, from your point of view, why do people need coaching?
Okay, I'm just gonna finish your part, the previous part. I haven't finished
Sorry.
it. It's okay. So 1 hour of coaching, and then 30 minutes we'll do art therapy, or we will do
Art
journaling.
therapy.
Because
wow.
when we go through a traumatic event, right? So pregnancy loss is not a trauma, but it's a traumatic event. Meaning trauma is, according to Gabor Mate, is what happens inside us as a result of the loss, right? So our perception of the event. So some people can go through it without, you know, going through that grief, but some people need a bit more support. But it is a traumatic event for us. So sometimes when that happens, right, our left brain, which is the logical thinking, the rational thinking, actually shuts off. And our right brain, Broca area, is the one that actually lit up. So sometimes when you ask people, how do you feel, you know, what's going on, they don't have the words for it, because when it happened, their left brain actually shuts off. But your right brain is creativity, arts, music, movement. That's why you see therapists using a lot of movement, dance, music, art, for people to express non-verbally. So this is where I join in a little bit of that.
Oh, wow.
To do a bit of art therapy. And I really go with what I feel at that time. So it's not like,
what is art therapy, basically?
So basically, we could have just say, you know, I'll just go to a coaching session and see what this person needs. And very intuitively, I could have said, you know, draw where you feel your angel child is right now. Or, you know, things like that. So then they can express it out. And sometimes when they draw it out, they feel like, oh, wow, it's so different, like just expressing it in words and expressing in drawing. We can go through journaling as well. So journaling, art therapy, these are tools that therapists use as well. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist. Yeah, this is what they use as well for people who've been through trauma or PTSD or very stressed, or people who are highly anxious.
So for ladies, do you have cases where do you know, okay, Asia being such a kind of close, and you know, it's a very taboo subject, do you get ladies who feel a bit embarrassed doing art journaling, like honestly, like basically I don't know what to do, or you know, I'm a bit shy, or how do you get them out of that shell and everything to do
So some of them are like, oh, I'm not good at drawing, but this is not about being good or not good. This is part of your healing journey. You know, so I'll actually leave them. I won't be actually near them. I'll actually, after our coaching session, we'll guide through. Then I'll actually leave them to have their own space for 15 minutes or so. And then I'll come back again and check them and see. So giving them just their own space. Even sometimes if they don't draw much, it's just that thought process. Sometimes we don't dare to face the emotion. So the quiet time sometimes help. Or I can go into visualization with them as well.
So there's different ways. So I mean, it's not a one step everybody does the same thing. It just depends on that person as well.
Correct. So I go with the flow. That's why I say it's a co-partnership. It's like a dance. You need to know where this person is at right now. Is he or she ready for the next
Yeah.
step?
Is it always a one-on-one session?
So I do a few things. One is called Pregnancy Loss Circle. That I do it bi-monthly, but I'm thinking of increasing because as more and more people start to know me, I always do it very small group or limited to 8 packs only.
So
Because we want
bi-monthly,
it,
so twice a month, basically 8 people.
no,
Bi-monthly,
bi-monthly.
once every 2 months.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So in that circle that is sharing, because we heal when we hear other people's story or when we are able to speak our story. So that's a support group, right? Feeling heard and seen. And then I had another one, which is what I call Pregnancy Loss Retreat, which one is coming up in December actually. So that one we do more art, more sharing, and that's a 3 hours session. And I also have an energy healer that comes in with me. We do a bit of sound therapy. So I do different. So next year I'm thinking of doing some movement based, some women movement, or we can do womb yoga. So that I craft a little bit different each time, just to be unique. And again, it's always small group, so that there is that sense of intimacy as well, and safety and security. That's so the support group, which is the Pregnancy Loss Circle, the Pregnancy Loss Retreat, which next month is the 10th of December. I'm doing mindfulness and Reiki. And then, of course, there's a one-on-one coaching. When it comes to coaching, I do it one-on-one because it's very private. Sometimes you might talk about your childhood. Sometimes you might talk about your spouse because spouse grieve differently, and these are very private and confidential information.
So a lady who comes to you for coaching, do they join all 3 or it's up to them? You want to join
It's
one?
up to them.
Oh, it's up to them. Okay.
Yeah, so usually how I do is like, this is what I have. At any time they feel like coming, they come. It's not about forcing them to go everything. And people sometimes have that misconception, right? That people who come to the loss circle are people who just experience loss. But that's not true. I have moms who are like 20 years, 15 years ago, and now they have like 2 or 3 kids, and they still come. Because they understand that grief is not linear, and there's nothing to be ashamed about grieving. It's just that anytime you need to grieve and feel sad, you find a safe space for yourself to grieve. And when you need to function normally, you come out and function normally. Doesn't mean that, once you grieve means you're stuck in the past. It's being agile in the emotions. Yeah, and knowing how to come in and out and when to give yourself that safe space.
I totally agree. I mean, I do think that a lot of people think that, okay, after you finish grieving, that's it, finished. You're not going to grieve anymore, you're over it. But it never kind of goes away, especially if you go through loss and everything. It stays with you. It's always in there. And when there's always trigger points and this and that when somebody talks about it. And, it's... So I guess I do understand what you mean by when you say that some people 10, 15 years later, it's still there.
It's just like you won't ask love to go away, right? Love is an emotion, but we always want unpleasant emotions to go away. So when I coach some people, right, they're like, I don't want to feel this, this is painful, I want to stop it. And that's a very common thing. And sometimes when I ask them, when was the last time you feel sad? They're like, 2 years ago. When was the last time you feel joy? 2 or 3 years ago. Because when you cannot feel sadness, you cannot feel the other spectrum of that emotion as well, which is joy. And I really like if you watch the anime Inside Out before.
Yes. I love that. My kids watch it all the time.
Good. So that's very important. Every emotion serves a purpose. Every emotion is here to tell a story. Every emotion can be expressed in the body. And like initially, they didn't want sadness. They want sadness to go away, right? But then the girl couldn't truly feel joy. It feels like she needs to please the parents instead. So there's no need to shy away from certain information. And when you mentioned about trigger point, and I love trigger points personally because that's an onion for me to peel off the layer again. Oh, I'm feeling triggered. Why is that so? It's an opportunity. It's just like parents, right? Every time your kids have a meltdown, it's a teachable moment, right?
Yes.
So this is the same for ourselves. Oh, I'm very angry at that. Oh, I can't look at another pregnant woman. What's really going on? I don't want to, go out with my friends to see their kids. What's really going inside? Sometimes we always look at what's on top, on the surface, just the behavior. But under every, same for kids and parenting, right? So under every behavior that's on top of the iceberg, there's an emotion, right? Under every challenging behavior, there's an emotion. Even like some moms who come, I have suicidal thoughts, I have self-harm thoughts. There's an emotion because there's pain, there's sadness. And under every of that emotion, there's a unmet need underneath. So it's peeling the layer, going deeper. So some women who comes to me for coaching, they initially think of they want to talk about pregnancy loss. Then after a while, they realize, oh, it's actually about not able to hold boundary to say no. So the result came out very differently because we are peeling the onion below. Some come to me and say, I cannot look at social media. All my friends are having kids right now. And then we peel underneath the layer. It's about, needing to meet other people's expectation, about some childhood expectation from their parents. So this is where we go a little bit deeper. Yeah.
There's a lot of underlying things that they realize later on. And I guess that's their healing process as well.
Yes. Yeah.
In terms of your coaching, do you only coach females or males as well?
I do coach both. But because of the nature of the topic, many female comes and male they are okay to come for the support group. Usually they come with their spouse. That's what I experience. Because male tend to grieve very differently from women. Women like to but we tend to talk about it, and we feel okay to be emotional, to cry and things like that. But a lot of male associate crying, being emotional with being vulnerable, with being weak. I don't want to be seen as a weak, I want to be seen masculine, and hence they tend to show their emotions in anger, because anger is acceptable for men, right? So a lot of times anger is a secondary emotion for men. Underlying that, I talk about a lot underlying here.
It's okay.
Underlying that anger, it can be fear, it can be sadness, it can be anxiousness, but usually they portray it as anger. And men tend to have delayed grief. So there's a lot of different type of grief as well. More than 10 types of grief. But if I can just briefly talk, that has inhibit grief, unresolved grief, and delayed grief. Men usually go through delayed grief because at that time, their spouse, the women, might need their help, so their survival mode kick in, or they need to do the funeral arrangement, they need to take care of them. So they don't grieve. They just focusing on taking care of their spouse, making sure they're okay. So their grief sometimes can come 2 years later, 1 year later. That's called delayed grief.
Interesting. And then I guess by then the wife probably think, wow, why is this suddenly coming now and this and that? I cannot quite understand it and things like that.
And because men don't verbalize as much, but you see them getting angry at every little thing. Yes. So then you start wondering what's going on. So a lot of times people don't understand that the behavior can be a sense of loss or sense of grief. The link, they didn't connect the link, because when we suppress our emotions so much, right? It will manifest in other areas in our life, areas that unexpected, that we don't expect.
Correct. That brings back to, on Inside, I was reading an article the other day how the father was always portrayed by the anger, and then the mother is portrayed by anxiety, or one of the other ones, and so that's quite interesting how they signify each role and which emotion you're going through. Yeah. So okay, in terms of your coaching sessions, is there like a certain number of coaching sessions, or can I just come for 1, 2, 3? How does it work?
I usually do 6 because we need time to build that connection and go deep depth. Usually the first 2, sometimes people still very on the surface. And I feel it's still, I don't want you to come in and just touch and go. Then there's really no purpose of doing that, you know what I mean? So I usually like to go a bit deeper with them. And when they come for coaching, I actually give them a pregnancy loss journal, which I should have here, that I've actually created. So with that, some of them, they can express themselves through writing. So in my pregnancy loss journal, there's 3 chapters. Release, heal, and move forward. So I don't use the word move on so much. I use the word move forward, because sometimes it's not about moving on, it's just moving forward with the grief. So the releasing part in the chapter actually brings back memory of their loss. So it actually brings back more emotion and more tears, and that's intentional, because you want them to go back in, because if you don't give yourself that space, you don't acknowledge your emotions, it's very hard to heal.
Mm.
It's just like, you know, since you're a parent, like, you know, we name it to heal it. We name that emotion that the kid is having right now to heal.
Alright.
So it's the same for us going through pregnancy loss. You need to name that emotion.
I guess, I mean, we always don't think too much into that, so that's why we don't name it, or we just presume that it's just grief, full stop, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's very interesting. In terms of costs for your coaching sessions, would you mind sharing?
Yeah, sure. Yep. So my coaching is 180 per session for 90 minutes. And that's one session. And minimum is 6 sessions.
Okay.
My pregnancy loss circle, that's bi-monthly, that's complimentary as a support group. But the pregnancy loss retreat, which is 3 hours, that's chargeable. So I do things that are complimentary and things that are chargeable.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, now going on to like the actual topic itself, right? Okay, so these are some of the questions that people ask and this and that. Okay, what would be your best tip on moving on after loss, or what are some steps that a couple can do based on your experience? I think you definitely did mention some things just now, but maybe in a bit more detail.
Yeah, so a lot of times we in our urban society, you hear this word a lot, coping mechanism, right? But what we really forget is the other two, which is my own theory, okay? Which is releasing mechanism. We tend to learn to cope. But if we don't release that stress, release that sadness and pain, we cannot hold space for new things to come in. So releasing, like I said, it's a lot of stuck energy in the body, right? So do any movement-based activities, even just go for a walk, that's why I like to go to the park, go to the beach, you know, so do movement-based activity to release the energy. Some of them do qigong, some of them do yoga, you know, this is because you can manipulate your brain, right? Our brain, you know, according to research, you just need to say like 7 times and your brain believe whatever, even if it's not true. But your body brain is 4 times smarter than your mind brain. So even though you can manipulate your brain and say, I'm okay, I'm done over this, but your body doesn't lie.
And then, okay, when you say body, what do you mean by body in terms of?
So some of them you realize that, oh yeah, I'm okay, but then they have insomnia, but then they have anxiety, they have pain here and there, they have aches everywhere. So all this energy that's stuck in us, if we don't release it, it becomes physical illness in the long run. You see that they have sleep discs, they have like hip pain, that, you know. Yes, so you see more and more of that. There's these 2 books, The Body Keeps Score. Basically,
The Body Keeps Score.
Yep, very good book. And When the Body Says No.
When the Body Says No.
So your body doesn't lie. You can see the symptoms in it. Yes, that's why when I coach, I like to go into the body, and which is also harder with men sometimes, because when you do mindfulness practice, you're like, what am I supposed to do?
I don't want.
You know, they feel very awkward. While women are a bit more open to it.
So in a nutshell, basically what you're saying is that when there's grief and everything in our mind, it can translate to our body, basically.
Yes. It's integrated. It's your mind and body are one. It's not a separate, you know, soul identity. So release mechanism, right? And so release can be do art therapy, go for a walk, journaling, go for support group. You know, not everyone likes to like go in a group and talk about it. They feel like, oh, you know, they introvert, you know, or they're not ready yet, you know, to pour out or cry in front. Some people find it very hard to cry, let alone that it's in a group. Or some people find it very hard to see other people cry as well, to hold space. So you see, when you cry, sometimes we feel uncomfortable, especially men. They'll be like, oh, don't cry. They try to dismiss or distract you, right? So release is one. Talk to people that you feel safe talking to. A lot of people have good intention for you, but they might not be the right person to talk to. So even your best friend or your spouse or your parents, right? But they don't know how to hold space. They might try to fix you, but here we don't need fixing, right? They might say things like, don't worry, you're still young, you can try again, so it's very
Yes,
dismissing. Or,
yes.
let's just go, let's just go for a retreat, let's go for shopping, that's also like distracting, right? But what you really need is to that space to be able to hold you. So choose the people wisely as well, because some of the words that people say can be more toxic lah. Or some people compare
But
suffering.
how do they know where to find the right person to talk to?
So it's really you yourself lah. You need to know
Yeah.
like who you can talk to. If you have a friend who always comparing, oh yeah, my friend also had a loss, and try to compare suffering, and so these are like very toxic and unhealthy. So coming to the loss circle is one
Yes.
way, because I
Yeah.
facilitate. My role there is just a facilitator. So I really don't really talk much at a time. The other mechanism is what I call navigation mechanism. So
Navigation.
I didn't want to talk about a coping mechanism, because a lot of us always try to cope. So I talk about release first, okay? Then navigation mechanism. Talk to your spouse. How do you want him or her to support you? Just because they're married to you, they are not your clone. They don't know exactly how you feel. Sometimes we're like, you've been so long with me, you should know, and this you should, and this assumption is a number one killer for a lot of relationships.
That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so even for your best friend, navigate how you want people to support you. Ask yourself, what support do I need right now? Do I need someone to go and just deal with my dog, or deal with my errands and my household, my laundry, so I don't need to worry about that? I just need space for myself. I just want to go away for a week. What is it that you need? Some people want to talk about it, but some people don't want to. So even your friends around you, sometimes they're like tiptoe on eggshell. Should I tell her? Should I don't tell her? I'm not too sure. So you need to learn how to navigate with other people. If someone says to you, say, I actually don't feel like talking about it right now. If I am open, I'll come to you. So you navigate, you help that person. Or like, you know what, I actually really want to talk about it. Do you have time? I need a listening ear. So instead of just people coming to you, you need to help people navigate as well. It's a dance between you and that person. So same for spouse. If you need to cry and you want your spouse to be okay with you crying, right? Tell him, I really just need that space, and I don't need you to fix. Because men has a tendency to try to fix. What's the problem right now? Okay, how about we do this. But sometimes we don't need to be fixed. We just want to release. We just want that space, Yeah, so you tell, I don't need to be fixed. I just want you to hear me. If you cannot hold space for me, just give me some time to cry. I just need, I need you to do the laundry with me. Or you have kids. Can you just take care of the kids right now? Yeah. So that's what I would.
Yeah. So sorry, somebody just asked, okay, if basically they have nobody to talk to, what should they do? I mean, okay, my suggestion is that join support groups. I know it comes down to support groups. Just example, our support group, the reason why we created it is because we felt that people didn't have a safe space, number one. Or I think that you can talk better to people who are going through the same thing, whether it's loss, whether it's infertility, or whether having similar people going through similar experiences kind of just creates a bond, and therefore makes it easier to talk. That's what I feel, yeah.
For sure, yeah. So if you feel like, people will come like, but I don't want to go support group. There's so many people, or some people they didn't announce their pregnancy, or some people out of wedlock, or some people feel that their pregnancy is like 15 years ago. It feels weird to come and talk
Really
to
talk about it anymore, kind of thing.
Yes, correct. Or some people it's not it's a planned loss. They terminate the baby and they feel shame talking in a group, right? So what I would suggest is journal. That's one way. So you can talk to yourself, it's your own voice. But if you have a tendency to spiral in circles, the other way is coaching. Because what we do in coaching.
When you talk about journaling, right? What should they write? I mean, what is journaling? In case some people don't really quite understand what's journaling to them.
One way is it okay if I just go quickly grab my journal for you?
Sure.
Yes, sorry. I should have it on with me.
No problem.
Okay. So right here, I do have this journal that I created.
You are always in my heart.
You're always in my heart. This is one way. Again, I didn't really post it on anywhere or anything like that.
So this is a book you created yourself, basically?
Correct.
Okay.
So people currently are actually coming to my studio at Newton to collect it. I think the only place that I posted was my Instagram, but I didn't have like an online shop or anything yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much is a journal like this basically?
20.
20. And okay, what is in this journal basically?
So in this journal, right, I mean there are some quotes and things like that, but there's also this my favorite page, which is called My Grieving Space. So it talks about, I have the right to remember my angel baby. I will grieve the way I feel at my own pace. I'm open to being vulnerable. I accept where I am right now. I'm enough. These are affirmations. I can hold boundaries. And then inside there's that 3 chapters that I mentioned: release, heal, and move forward. So it talks about going back, like I am having a hard time understanding, what is it? Sometimes I feel angry because, so if you don't want to write, you can draw. That's why it's like it can be as much blank space as possible. So the hardest time of the day is,
honestly, it's really very useful. Okay, can we share this for you? I mean,
sure, of
yeah,
course,
maybe
of
I'll
course.
take some. You can send us some photos, and we'll definitely share this book up, because I think it's so useful. Because I think that it's very hard for somebody to do, like, get a book and write stuff without kind of knowing what to write. That's why I asked you about journaling. Yeah, because sometimes you need to have a start point to be able to kind of lead you to where you want to go.
Correct. So then after a while, it shifts, like, what triggers me? Who can I ask for support? Something I'm still learning to accept is, what would I want to tell my injured baby? Things like that. So what I've learned in this journey, so it slowly shifts them along lah. So that's the book.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, great. So that's the journaling part, and that's how, if they have no one to talk to, they can basically get the journal and write down their feelings, and that should,
of course,
I guess, getting it off your chest and everything is
correct. You people sometimes minimize or underestimate the power of writing. Words are very, very powerful, and because you write it, you see it, your brain perceive it, so it's very powerful in that way.
I think, yes.
Correct. And the other way, if you really have nobody to talk to, basically it's come for coaching lah. One-on-one coaching.
Correct. And I think that it's good that there are more coaching services available in Singapore, because, as you said, I mean, when I previously Googled and everything, there was a lot overseas. You see so many Facebook pages coaching, or mainly in the US and Australia and this, that, but you hardly see any coaching here in Singapore.
That's right.
I think that it's something that ladies need to realize, that there is this availability that they can go to.
Yeah.
So, okay, somebody asked, okay, I think this is, how long does it take to move on after a miscarriage?
It's just like, how long do you take to love a person? It's very individual, isn't it? And like I say, sometimes it's not about moving on, it's moving forward with it. We always have that perception that I want to cut it and then put it, compartmentalize it, never come back into my life again, and then I kind of go, right? So just transform that grief energy into love, and understanding that grief is linear. It changes. It's not a space to stay, that grief. It is a space that you keep changing into other energy. So for example, my grief has changed into my passion right now, to support and help other women. So you can change that grief. So one question that helped me throughout is, I always ask myself, in my when I just experienced loss, what version of myself do I want to show my angel babies? If my angel babies were watching me from above, or whatever religion that you have, what do I want them to see in me? Then you live the best version of yourself.
Okay, I guess that it's to change your whole mindset, basically.
Correct. Yeah. I just finished one of Brene Brown's podcasts, and she was talking a lot about, sometimes when we have acknowledged the emotion, observe how, as a third party, right? Observe how we are responding or reacting. Why are we being triggered? And then learn to sit with the emotion. That's not what we do often. We tend to run away from the emotion. Or if you sit with the emotion and then change your perspective. So this is where actually coaching comes in, changing your perspective. It's not about fixing you or giving you advice, or like, it's about you finding your own aha moment. We believe that the coachee knows the answer deep down. We just need to shine light.
Understand. In terms of guilt, there are obviously some ladies who basically feel that the miscarriage is their fault.
Yep.
Okay, how can they get over this guilt?
Yeah, Asians are very good at this because you drink cold
Correct.
water, because you carry heavy things, because you walk up the stairs and things like that. I
Because
had
you
that
lift
a
your
lot.
hands up too high, things. There's lots of different things at the end of the
I
day.
had that a lot, yeah. Actually, in fact, because after my second loss, my third pregnancy, I actually quit my job, went back to my mom's home and listened to all the not fairy tales, all the old tales and everything, the do and
Things
don'ts.
that you
Right?
shouldn't have done and this and that.
Yes, didn't tell anyone. It was so miserable because I'm a very active person, but I need to stay at home, quit my job, don't do anything. And you know what? If I can put it very bluntly, shit still happens. I still had that loss, then, and it was the worst loss. I needed to make that call to pull that plug, and that shifted my mindset. I got like, you know what, this is BS. I'm not gonna do this anymore. That's why when I have Elvana, I actually just live my life as I want. I didn't know whether she would survive or not, but I told myself, whatever it is, I want my child right now that's in my womb to feel how I feel, to see the world through my womb. I don't want the child to live in anxiousness, whether it's going to survive, mommy's always feeling this. So I end up hiking Nepal for 7 days. I know.
While you were pregnant?
While I was pregnant, I'm a very active person. I literally just live my life as it is. I still went on work trips to Philippines. I went to attend weddings in Japan. Went Hong Kong without telling people I'm pregnant. Winter jackets and everything, so that I can still do the activities that people do. Because I don't like people nagging. I know this is gonna come back and bite me. My daughter's gonna.
When you're older.
I know. I don't like people nagging with me, so I tend to sometimes, as long as I get my husband permission, the doctor permission, I tend to go ahead and do it.
Yes.
So I only tell people very late in my pregnancy, that one, for people that I know would nag lah, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one. Sorry, how did we get here?
Basically, oh dear, oh my god, my brain is so I said basically the guilt.
Yes, okay, very good. Thank you for reminding me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're so organic, we go so many places, right?
Yes.
Every emotion serves us. Guilt is the only emotion, if it's prolonged guilt, doesn't serve us, because prolonged guilt leads to resentment. And when you have that prolonged guilt, how is it helping you to move forward? And understanding, so I had a chat with Dr. Anupriya Agawa, who is one of the fertility doctors, and she said actually 90% of pregnancy loss is due to chromosome abnormalities.
And that is very true, and a lot of people don't know that. They often think it's their fault or this and that, but it is something that is not told enough to people, that it is not your fault, basically. Yes.
So there's nothing you could should not have done. It would have happened anyway, just like my third pregnancy.
Correct.
Do you know? Yes. So and guilt, that blame and that shame, it doesn't help you, it doesn't serve you. So you need to know how to get out of it. Like I said, anger can serve you, fear can serve you, but prolonged guilt doesn't serve you.
But how do they get out of it? So basically, do you have any tricks or tips, or just even a small one, basically, in terms of just how to get over that? Because I know it's easy for us to say, but is there any ways that they can do that?
So going back to that releasing mechanism, release from your body, acknowledge that emotion, right? Okay. What am I really guilty here right now? Why am I feeling this guilt? Where in my body am I feeling this guilt? So listen to your body. Actually, our body tells us a lot of things, but we don't listen to it, all right? And then what can I do right now to serve me? What do I need right now to support myself? Questions like that, right? And then you slowly realize, actually, this guilt, does it serve me? Do I want to stay in this space? Is it a healthy space to stay? And so this is the role of the coach, basically. Sometimes the shifts. And again, so we will do art, journaling, Sometimes even just walking. You know how sometimes like we were just like alone and walking, and then suddenly got aha moment pop up. So sometimes it's that mental clarity. So I like to use this analogy, right? It's like a wall in front of you, right? And then we're like, wow, a big wall in front of me. Okay, how to hustle through it, how to go over it, you know, how to drill a hole over it, who can support me to get across it. But sometimes if we just pause, breathe, take a few steps back, and then really observe what's going on, right? And then you look around you, you realize, hey, maybe 20 feet down, there's actually a door across. But you couldn't have seen that door because you were just so focusing on doing, and what's right in front of you. That's why I do go into a somatic and mindfulness practice in my coaching as well. Literally just sit, even with the unpleasant emotion, right? They'll start crying. It's okay, just sit with it, you know? And then after that, they say, hey, I feel much lighter. Sometimes really they just need that cry. So I'm a big crybaby, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Like sometimes I'll tell my husband, I think I need to go into my zone tonight. Can you give me space? And then he knows. I'll just cry until I go, like I cannot even talk like a young kid. And that's my releasing mechanism. So you need to know what is your releasing mechanism. Is it go and draw? Is it run? Is it things like that? Some people have a bit more unhealthy releasing mechanism, like drink, overeating, binge eating, you know, smoking. So you need to know to choose healthy releasing mechanism as well. And if some people like to talk about it, right? And it helps. Every time you talk about it, right, it helps you heal each time. So you need to find a friend or support group that's willing to hear you repeat it over and over again.
No, I do agree. I think that sometimes when you talk about it with somebody, then you realize something. Because when you keep it inside, when you don't say out, that's why I think journaling, as you said just now, it works. I like writing things down as well. And I do realize sometimes that when you suddenly read it, because what's in your mind suddenly, when you read it and then you realize, oh, I didn't realize that's why I wrote down and things like that. So I definitely do think that it's something that people should try if they have not tried, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
In terms of grief, right? Coming back to grief again, I mean, I think we did touch about on this, but somebody asked, does it ever fully go away?
Why do you want it to fully go away?
Yep.
It's just like love. Do you want love to fully go away?
Yeah.
Because grief is basically intense love, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and every emotion is here to serve you. The grief, can you transform it to something else? Can you use it? What would your angel baby want you to use this grief for?
Yeah.
So when I went into pregnancy loss coaching, initially, how I tell my husband, I say, this is what our angel baby tell us, and I can hear this calling from them. You know, like this is the direction they want me to go into. And initially, he was a bit like worried because, you know, doing this role, right, it's like doctor, everyone except for maternity, you know, that people give birth, but everyone else who come to you are people who are sad. Like doctors, only sick people come to you, right?
Correct.
So,
and it makes you sad, kind of thing. Is that what you're worried about?
So that's why the releasing mechanism is very important to me. I need to know how to release so that I don't always take on other people's emotion. It doesn't need to come in me. It can come through me. And whatever I give them is also just through me. It doesn't need to be the energy from me as well, because then I'll be very tired. I feel like people sucking all my energy, right? So knowing how to manage energy is very important in that sense. So that grief, I actually find that there's beauty in grief. Actually there's a very nice quote. Okay, give me a second. This quote is basically saying that suffering does not come from circumstances, it comes from expectation. And you have a choice on how you want to move forward with the circumstances. And your first part of your life, it's already been written, right? Because it's beyond your control, it happened. But you are the author for the second part of your life. Correct. Do you want to play a victim role? Oh, I'm so self-pity and sad, I'm like you know. Or do you want to play another role? It's your choice. You have the choice to choose, right? And also, I remember reading this quite recently, that it says that grief on one hand, and what's on the other hand? Okay, don't worry.
I have so many quotes to get from you. I've got so many quotes that I want to get from you to share with our ladies. I honestly think it totally makes sense.
Let it come to me. Right. Ask
Okay.
me other question. Maybe it'll come to me later.
All right, no worries. Okay,
Yeah.
so somebody asked, okay, I feel bad to move on and stop grieving. How can I move on? It's guilt again, basically, but this is not guilt like that I lost the baby, but I feel guilty towards my angel baby or my unborn child, basically. So I mean, how can they move on, move forward from this?
So basically saying that if they feel happy, they feel sorry that they feel happy. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Like, yeah, correct. Yes.
So basically, sometimes that's what we call unresolved grief.
Okay.
That you haven't fully truly grieved. That's why there's still that halfway here, halfway there, and things like that. Yeah, and is that what you think your angel baby would want to see from you?
Yeah.
And also, where did you learn this association of if I feel happy, if I move forward, means I forget about my angel baby? Where did you learn this?
Yes.
Where did this come from? Whose expectation is this? Whose definition is this?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so sometimes it's really our own mind and own expectation. And also, is this a fact or is this just your feeling?
Correct.
Is this a fact or is this just your subjective opinion or something?
Yeah.
Let's shift that
It's just,
perception.
I guess if we talk about analogies, it's just like basically, once you get married, you marry your husband, are you saying that you're not going to love your parents anymore? Or if you have a second child, are you not going to love your first child anymore? So I guess we can kind of link it like that, you know?
Yeah, so again, going back to the theory, it's not either or. Either I be happy or sad. You can be happy and sad.
Yeah.
You can still move forward and still remember your child. Does it mean that everyone who moved forward doesn't remember their previous child? Or for example, if you had a grandparent who passed on, right? I like to use this analogy a lot as well. You can have a grandparent, is it okay for you to think of them? If you tell people, I miss my grandparents, and most people say, yeah, of course. And if you think of them, do people tell you, hey, you should move on already, you shouldn't think about them?
Yeah.
People don't tell you things like that, right? But why do people tell you that when you think about your lost child?
It's a stigma. Basically, it comes down to the tabooism of talking about the fact that you lost a child, I think.
Correct. It's okay for you to miss your grandparents who have passed away 10 years ago, you know, and you miss that moment, and sometimes you just think about that moment with them. And you're happy in your life right now. Does that mean you don't love them? No? There's no association, there's no link. And then sometimes people say, oh, maybe because the baby, I didn't really see it. I don't have a tangible relationship. I didn't really get to hold it. I didn't really live my life with it. Then my next question is, most of them, if they're spiritual, can we see God? Nobody can see God. But do we have a relationship with whatever God you have? We do. So again, who says that because we didn't see that baby and didn't have a relationship with it? Sorry, we didn't see that baby.
Doesn't mean we didn't have a relationship.
Right? Whose definition is that?
Correct.
When we lost a child, a part of us actually lost together. That's why sometimes women feel it more than men.
Yes.
But doesn't mean men doesn't
to us
grieve.
physically in that sense.
Correct. But it's still a relationship. Even if it's a 1 day, 10 days, it's still a relationship, right? I managed to find a quote that I want to say. So basically, the work of the mature person is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. How much sorrow can I hold, and how much gratitude can I give? If I can only carry grief, I'll bend towards being despair and cynicism. If I only have gratitude, I won't develop much compassion for other people's suffering. So grief keeps the heart fluid and soft, which helps to make compassion possible. So we do need that in life. It's not because people always associate grief with death, and nobody likes to talk about death. But unfortunately, death is something that nobody can escape in life.
Yeah.
Right? As much as we don't like to talk about it. So instead of trying to run away from it, just, embrace it. And I always like to say that our discomfort zone is tied to our success zone. The more we expand our discomfort zone, the more we expand our success zone, because the magic happens outside of our comfort zone. So how to expand your discomfort range, increase your range for unpleasant emotion, increase your capacity to hold unpleasant emotion. Because when you can hold unpleasant emotion, you can also hold your child's unpleasant emotion. You're not as triggered when you see them melt down or cry. You can also hold your spouse's unpleasant emotion when they're angry and things. You don't get easily triggered as well. You expand your range in many different things. Yeah.
That does make sense, in that sense, if you think about it in that aspect.
Yes, because if you can't even hold your own emotion, like when people cry, when you get very agitated easily.
Correct. And I think, especially as a woman, there's so many people around you that you kind of, we're not like men where we can kind of switch off, go to one side. We kind of just bring it all in. And so we need to kind of figure out how to deal with it.
Yes. Actually, now that you bring a very important point, especially now that you're also on the fertility support group, right? It's been researched that women who are anxious, overwhelmed, or stressed, pregnant women, they have a tendency to have a preterm baby, high chance to have a preterm baby.
Yeah.
But if the spouse of that woman has stress, anxiety, or feeling overwhelmed, there's an even higher chance of the preterm baby.
Because you basically bring on extra feeling onto yourself. And that's
because
why
women tend to absorb other people's feelings. So it's not just about your own feeling. You also need to watch how your spouse feels because you absorb their feeling. Yeah.
So what happens if, let's say, come back to just a spouse for a few minutes. Let's say the woman has accepted it, she's moving forward in that sense, but the man can't, as you said, then it becomes like, it creates problems in the relationship and everything. So what would your advice be to women who have husbands who are not moving forward in that sense? What can they do?
Bringing them to support group is one.
If they're not open, let's say, typical man just doesn't feel like he needs a support group. So what else can we do?
Yeah, that's a very challenging one.
Correct.
Yeah. So going back to a theory, release mechanism. At least have them release that stress in their body and give them enough space. Sometimes men like to go into man cave and process, but sometimes women are like, what are you thinking? Tell me, and then we just intrude into their space. But if you give them enough space, sometimes they do process. But sometimes they have very strong face value, right? And ego as well. They might not want to tell you. Right, and the more you intrude and the more you make them feel vulnerable and they are weak, the more they want to put up or defend a stronger front, right? Do exercise with them, right? Release it out from the body. Whether they like to swim, they like to run, they like to sweat it out, right? And just giving them the space. And sometimes, if we nag, right, the more they would tend to go. It's just like your kids, right? The more you then or even us, when our parents nag us, then we tend not to tell them certain things, right? So it's
sometimes
a
you just can't
co-partnership.
help it, sometimes when you see certain things, just like, I cannot deal with it. But
so if your spouse, like my spouse, is more research based, he likes to read, right? And he likes to hear it from professionals and things like that, right? Send them links, send them reading articles or materials. So sometimes you need to go subtly, or sometimes I like to use like kids so I talk a lot about kids, right? Because
honestly,
I think
we treat our husband like a kid. That's my point of view. That's why I always think that, even though I've got 2 sons, I always tell you I have 3 because I add my husband as a child. But yeah, honestly, you treat them like a child, and then it works out better than like an adult.
So like for example, like kids, sometimes you use stories or storybooks to basically tell them some things, right? So sometimes men don't like you to tell them, hey, I think you need help. I think you then they were like, whoa, that's a lot. But you can go into more, tactful. This is what we're saying. You need tact. Yeah, being tactful, going through stories, going through, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Another question that somebody asked is basically, let's say if they're pregnant after 2 miscarriages, or whatever number of miscarriages, and now she feels fear. I think we talked about that just now in the. But how does she get over the fear just like for example, for you, basically you decided I'm just going to switch off and everything. But for a lady who basically she wants this pregnancy so much, she doesn't want anything to go wrong, what's other ways that she can switch off fear?
You know, as much as we don't want anything to go wrong, it's sometimes not our call.
Yes.
You can do everything that you want, you know, but whether it will get the result that you want or not. So I always try to think like, if I'm going to go through this pregnancy being fearful, and just like my third pregnancy, right, I go through it, but shit still happens, right? Then I might as well prefer to go through it because the baby takes your emotion. Don't forget this.
Yes.
Whatever emotions that you're having during the pregnancy, the baby actually absorb it. So whatever traumatic event that happened to you, and you perceive that as a trauma, that overwhelm and stress, it was also passed down. So ask yourself, what can I do for my child right now? Is this fear serving me? Is this fear useful? I know it's very hard. Even when I have Awana, of course, there are days that, you know, I will be scared. I mean, we are humans, and it's okay to feel scared. I mean, I'm not saying that it's wrong to feel scared. I'm saying that just sit with that a bit. Ooh, I'm feeling a bit scared. Let's observe myself. Observe yourself. Ask yourself questions and go deeper. Then you realize, actually, is there a need to feel scared? You know? Yeah. Like the baby heartbeat is not within your control. There's nothing you can do to control the baby. If the baby heartbeat stops, I mean, unfortunately, that's the case. So we have people who done like 9 IVFs, have like a few loss, you know, as much as you want everything to go perfectly well, as well as you follow the protocol.
Yes.
That's my battery running.
Okay,
I'm charge my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, there's only so much you can do. You know, a lot of things are not within your control, and this is something that you need to understand. That basically, as you said, if it happens, unfortunately, it happens. You don't. I mean, guilt is normal, but it's not your fault, basically.
Correct. Yeah. So if I can give a very real life example to you, right? Okay, I'm gonna hold my phone instead. If I can give a very real life example to you, I lost my hearing in 2016. So I'm 1 year. I got an infection, and the infection basically eat up my bone, my hearing bone. So there's
like
a gap.
Ear infection, or
like a ear infection. So my hearing bone, you know how your hearing bone has that 3 loops, in your bone. Sorry, going over biology. There's a gap. There's a gap in my bone, and I would never be able to have sound vibrate through because there's a gap. When sound vibrate through, it cannot go through the bone because you need the bone vibration to go to your cochlea, right? So permanently deaf. And
in 1 ear. So basically, in 1 ear, you completely cannot hear.
Correct. So my AirPod only need to have 1 ear.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and this infection in my lifetime can come back again. I have a 10% chance of reoccurrence. Okay, and unfortunately, it came back in 2019, just 2 years ago. And this time around, it was very near my facial nerves. It was right on top of my facial nerves. And this is what the doctor told me. The doctor told me and said, if someone has stroke, right? So basically, if it is on my facial nerves, I wouldn't be able to control my blinking, my smiling. I wouldn't be able to control my salivate. My speech would be slurred. You know, like how people stroke have a face looked up. They can rehabilitate because they have that nerve. But if my nerve is gone, if the infection eats up that nerve, there's no way. The doctor need me to understand there's nothing we can do to undo it. I was begging him. I was asking, can you please tell me what else can I do? He said, at most you can just like do surgery and just leave your face and stay there, like Botox just stays there, but you can't move. So can you imagine that fear that's in me? And at that time, I'm already a mom. I don't know if I can still read a storybook to my child. And this is something I leave. I mean, it's still the infection, as much as they try to get it away, right? Of course, the 2019 surgery is successful because I'm speaking and smiling right now, but there is still a chance of reoccurrence. So this fear is very real to me because at any time it can go into my brain, and that gives a complexity because the ear is very near to the brain, and they actually has thinned out the bone of my between my ear and my brain already because they were trying to polish out the infection as much as they can. But
Yeah.
basically, it's a bit like termites. You won't know until something
Until it
happens.
happens, basically.
Correct. You can't see what's underneath the bone. So this is a very real fear for me. So as I speak, right, I'm not speaking at, like, you know, some people say, oh, because you already have a child now,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
yes.
that,
Or
and
you don't know, there's nothing that you fear or anything, but yes.
yeah. So I live with this fear and I understand, but I can choose to live with this fear every day, thinking like, oh my God, what's next? Why if? Or I can choose to live very purposefully. Everyone will need to go one day anyway. But if I go one day, what is my legacy to my children that I'm passing down? What values am I passing down to the
No
future
regret.
generation? Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think nobody would know, and I think these are a lot of things that I don't know. I always see a lot of people, and you know, some people who are very, very happy with life and everything. After talking to them, then you realize that they've gone through something, you
Yep.
know, and then suddenly they just realize that I could die anytime or something could happen to me anytime. So I'm not going to live like that. Yeah. So it's really very, very, you know, heartwarming to hear things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Again, this there's no courage without vulnerability. So I'm
Yes.
literally very vulnerable all the time. You know,
Mm.
and if you come to my space, you speak to my team, I'm one of those leader that, hey, I'm not too sure what to do. You know, I'm very open and vulnerable that I don't pretend I know what to do.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and that gives me the courage.
Yeah.
So sometimes we all do courage doesn't need to be like, wow, strong and daring, and you know, or sometimes courage can mean that today I just want to give space to myself to feel sad. That's
Mm-hmm.
courage.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Few more questions before we
Sure,
end
no
this.
problem,
Okay.
no problem.
So okay, now I want to go to the part of friends. You know. Okay. So let's say I have a friend who is going through a miscarriage, or you know, a family member and this and that. I mean, as friends, what can we say? What can we do? How do we support the person through this loss? You know, we get that quite often. We get this question quite often.
So basically, sometimes you're not too sure whether to talk about it, not to talk about it, you know what to. So when they go through this, right? So people who has been through a traumatic event, it's very, very important to give them choice. Doesn't matter what other traumatic event. The reason is because they already felt they didn't have a choice when that happened. So give them and be very honest and authentic with them. You know, like Vanessa, you know, I'm actually not too sure what to do, you know, and just tell them like how you feel and how you would like to support, but at the same time, you're not too sure whether they want to talk about it or don't want to talk about it. So give them the choice back. Do you feel like talking about it or not?
Yeah.
Right? And let them make the choice. You don't need to have assumption and make that choice for them. That's one. Okay. And if they choose to make that choice, right? If you already open up and say, yeah, I'm open to listen to you, then you need to be ready to hold space. You know, don't like say, hey, actually, I got to go in 30 minutes. You know, if you choose to commit that, right, then make sure you have sufficient time for them, right, to pour out, because they might need few hours, right? And if you choose that to hold space for them, make sure you are comfortable with their unpleasant emotions. Don't try to fix them. Don't try to dismiss them or distract them. You know, just let their emotion cry. If they want to cry, just let them cry. And if you're touched by it, you can cry too, just to let them know that I'm okay with your unpleasant emotion and I feel safe. I'm okay with it. Yeah. You know, so there's just being very authentic. There's no need to like, hi, I don't know, I'm not sure, you know, that kind of thing. And really refrain from giving advice unless they ask you. Yeah. A lot of times
Sometimes the advice that people give are just a big no.
Actually, don't need that advice. And also maybe if they don't want you to hold space, they're like, oh no, I actually don't want to talk about it. Might not be they don't want to talk about it. Might be you are not the person that they want to talk to. So always remember, this is about them, not you. Don't take it as a personal attack. Okay? Don't, even if you're the spouse.
Especially if they talk to another friend but not to you, that kind of
Correct.
thing.
Even if you're the best friends. Yeah, sometimes people prefer to talk to strangers that don't know about anything about it, right? So don't take it too personal. It's about them. Your aim, intention is about them, right? Then in that sense, create space for them. If you can hold space, hold space. You cannot create space. How you create space? Hey, I'm going to, you know, run some errands. Can I run these errands for you? Can I help to take your dog out for you? Can I help to do your laundry for you? Can I help you? You know, if you know what they are up to, right? Or like, can I cook for you on Fridays because, you know, I'm cooking anyway. I can just bring over a meal. So they are not clouded with so many things and have space to think. We talk about allowing them to release. So you can, hey, do you want to go for a jog together? Like, you know, let's be a jogging buddy every Friday, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Things to avoid to say. It's part of God's plan. Some people get very like what do you mean it's part of
It's
God's
not
plan?
meant to be. It's just
It's so sometimes people say it's not meant to be, or you're still young.
yeah.
So things you're still young, right? You're giving them false hope that they might have a child, but they might not. So when they're 30, you say they're still young. The minute they pass 35, you're like, oh, actually they're not young anymore. So, you know, just the minute of biological clock crosses the other side, right? So don't give false hope or say things like that, because they, you know, when people come to me, I really, really want a child, but I'm not God. I cannot just, you know, give you a child like that. Yeah, it's everyone's journey. Or don't dismiss it. Hey, don't think about it. I just don't think about it, then you'll be okay. Don't dismiss them. And don't keep asking why it happened. So how it happened? What did the doctor say? It's just like sometimes when people ask me too much question, right? Then I'll say like, you know, when if someone tell you they have cancer, are you going to ask them, hey, so how do you get cancer? Because that person really don't know how they get cancer, right? Like you don't know the root cause of how they get cancer. So it's the same for pregnancy loss. We don't know how it happened, why it happened. When you keep questioning us, it seems that we know the answer.
And it seems like it's our fault. Are we supposed to know that why
Correct.
Like
correct. And then the shame comes in. Right? So don't need to keep questioning. And anyway, so what if you know? What can you do about it? Nothing. So don't need to ask. It doesn't help anything. Right?
Agree.
Yeah. So also things like don't compare suffering. Oh, it's okay lah, you know, the other friend had 5 losses. You know, and things like don't
you only
compare
had
suffering.
one. It's fine. You know?
Yeah. Don't compare suffering. That doesn't mean because they have less means it's not valid, you know. Don't do that. Or don't say things like, oh, at least you can get pregnant. This is something that sometimes people say. Don't try to find the silver lining for them. It's okay if they themselves say it, if they themselves find the silver lining, but don't try to put it in for them.
Correct. Agree.
Yeah. I think, and sometimes we say, you know, oh, I understand how you feel.
We don't understand.
So yeah, just keep saying that. Sometimes just hold space. Silence actually is a very powerful tool. Sometimes we are so uncomfortable with silence. We feel like the need to talk, right? But sometimes silence and just your presence, it's enough. The energy is enough. Yeah.
How about, let's say, if in a different way, but let's say a person is pregnant and their good friend who has gone through loss and everything, how do you share this information in the most appropriate way?
Yeah, I remember you asking me this question. Again, giving them choice and being very authentic in telling them that you know, we are very close friends, or you can even start
Can you hear me?
Can. Yeah, you can even start the conversation that, you know, I really care for you, and this is something I'm struggling with, and I'm not too sure how to approach it, to be honest with you, and I've been thinking about it. And you're my good friend, and I feel like I want you to hear it from me instead from someone else, but I don't know how you will take it, right? So it's really literally like how you feel. I don't know. The truth.
That's the truth, basically.
Correct. I don't know how you would take this. And you know, and I understand if you need space, if you don't want to see me for a period of time, you know, and respect that, or you know, you just feel like whatever other things that you, because it's your friend, you probably know a bit better, right? And I just want to tell you that I actually got pregnant, but do take the opportunity to speak to them, Because if not, some people might feel like, oh, you're dismissing me. Especially some people, like, they join mothers group when they're pregnant and then they have a loss, right? Do you kick them out, right? That kind of feeling.
Correct. Yeah.
Because then they'll feel very isolated. So don't
Yeah.
make that choice for them. Ask them.
You
Let
feel
them make that choice. Yeah. So if that helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you being pregnant is, I mean, it's a blessing and there's nothing wrong. But I understand if that person feels sad. So but some people are very happy. So when I was pregnant and my friends had lost, I was very happy to go and support them. But some people say, hey, no lah, you know, it's pantang, you know, things like that, right? Yeah, so it really depends on individual. We don't need to make that call for them.
Understand. No, I
Mm.
think that's great advice. I do have, I mean, I even have somebody very close to me at the moment who's struggling to tell their own sibling that they're pregnant because this sibling has gone through major loss. So yeah, so that's great advice. I'll definitely be sharing that with her.
Yeah, tell them that I care, and because you're my friend. If honestly, if you're not my friend, just my Facebook friend, I don't bother telling you.
No, I care.
Right?
Yes,
Yeah, because I care for you, and and eventually they would know your belly will grow bigger. It's not like you can hide it for, like, you know, how long, right? So
You have a baby.
correct. It's so might better for them to hear it from you than someone else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any final advice for ladies who are basically just struggling, you know?
Really listen to your body, I would say. Your body tells you a lot of things, but sometimes we forget to listen to the body. And like I say, if you suppress that grief and you don't listen to the body, it ends up become physical illness.
Yes.
Yeah. Like mine, for example, right? Like when I was suppressing my grief throughout, right? So I've been through that journey and I understand why sometimes we feel like, because at that time I didn't have the resources and the tool. Yeah. And I could only do what I thought was best at that time. So again, there's no need to blame yourself. There's no need to shame yourself for what you didn't know yesterday that you know today. It's always a growing journey, and we will never arrive. It's always a path, right? I would say take a pause and acknowledge your emotions. Seek closure. You had a very important one for me. You say, I think you asked me a question on what if they don't know the cause? How do I seek closure?
Yes.
Acceptance. Accept that this had happened. Whether you know the cause, like cancer, I don't know how the hell did that person get cancer, right? But they need to accept that they get cancer, and this is their life now, right? So if you don't accept, you're just living in denial, then, you know, it's a constant other emotions is going to come up. Yep. So acceptance is a big one. Seeking closure, releasing, and you can do a lot of non-verbal communication.
And definitely we'll be sharing your journal and everything, and I mean, I'll be grabbing
Yeah.
lots of quotes from you to share
Yes.
with everybody. But thank you so much today.
No
if
problem.
they want to seek your coaching with you, basically, where do they find you?
Yeah, good question. You can I'm so embarrassed to even say this. People sometimes message me on Instagram and I sometimes don't check it very often, and I realize, that's like a week ago, and
I know.
and I try to find, like, hey, I remember someone messaged me somewhere. Where's that message? Right? I'm so sorry. Yeah. But do direct message me, or you can also email me at vanessa@mindfulspace.com.sg.
It's Vanessa, VERNESSA.
ESSA at mindfulspace.com.sg. I mean, the easiest is like WhatsApping me lah. That I see. Yeah, that I see. So if for the WhatsApp, you can just go on Mindful Space website. You'll see our WhatsApp there.
So it's mindfulspace.com.sg.
.sg, yes.
Oh, so no com.
Mindfulspace.com.sg.
Okay, mindfulspace.com.sg.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I hope it's helpful, this session, all the audience out there. Do give us feedback, I guess. So if you want to hear any more of things, yeah.
Yes, and then we can also look into basically, I mean, yoga sessions or mindful sessions that we can do together with our ladies and this and that as well.
Yes. For sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
No
Thank you
problem.
very
Thank you
much.
for joining us in this session, and we
Yeah.
wish you all the best. And so, I mean, I'll be talking to you really soon anyway. So,
Okay.
thank you, Vanessa, and thank you
Thank
everybody for joining
you.
us tonight. And have a great weekend ahead.
Yeah,
All
rest
right.
well.
Bye.
Bye.